Okay, so let's just dive right in. For decades, these absolutely spectacular geometric patterns have been popping up in fields all over the world. I mean, they go from these simple circles to designs of just mind-boggling complexity, and they always show up without a single witness. They're beautiful, they're baffling, and honestly, they're at the center of one of the most fascinating mysteries of our time.
To really get the feeling they inspire, you kind of have to go to the global epicenter, Wiltshire, England. As photographer Philip N. says, when you see them from the air, they are just stunning. This one little region, which is already home to ancient places like Stonehenge, it just becomes this hub every single summer for people trying to experience this phenomenon for themselves.
So, what are we actually talking about here? At its most basic, a crop circle is a design made by flattening crops like wheat or barley. But, that simple definition doesn't even begin to capture the scale or the precision. We're talking sacred geometry, mandalas, patterns so intricate they look like they were drawn with some kind of celestial compass, and they appear, poof, overnight.
But this isn't just about beautiful patterns in a field. The moment you get on the ground in Wiltshire, you realize this phenomenon sparks a very real and very human conflict.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly, the two sides of the coin. For thousands of tourists and researchers, these things are art. It's a social event, maybe even a spiritual quest. But for the farmers who actually own the land, it's criminal damage, it's lost income, and it's a huge nuisance with people constantly trespassing on their private property.
And you can really feel the frustration in this quote from farmer Tim Carson. I mean, can you imagine? After years and years of dealing with this, a lot of the farmers are just completely fed up. They've tried charging admission, putting out honesty boxes, but the damage and the disruption, it's just become totally overwhelming.
And we're not talking about a small problem here. The financial hit for every single one of these formations is pretty significant. And that number, it doesn't just represent the value of the flattened crop, it also includes all the extra damage from the hundreds of visitors who flock to see them, who often trample perfectly good crops just to get there. So this leads us to the most obvious, the most rational question, right? Given all this frustration and this very human conflict, could this whole thing just be a massive, elaborate hoax? The work of some clever people with a few simple tools?
And for a little while, it really seemed like the case was closed. Back in 1991, two guys, Doug and Dave, they came forward and claimed they've been making these circles for years, just as a prank. The public was floored. And today, it's well documented. Teams regularly go out and create these massive, complex circles for TV cameras, proving that, yeah, it can be done.
The method itself is actually surprisingly simple. It really just boils down to a good design, some rope, and a few planks of wood to press the crop down without leaving a ton of footprints. With a small, organized team, you can create something incredibly convincing. But here's the thing. The human method, it leaves a very specific signature. Researchers know exactly what to look for. When a person with a plank stomps down on a crop, it leaves crushed and broken stems. It's a clear pattern of mechanical damage. And this gives us a really crucial baseline for what a hoax looks like.
And that should be the end of the story, right? Case closed. But it's not. Because if it were all just planks and rope, we wouldn't still be talking about this. There's this whole other category of evidence that just doesn't fit the hoax explanation at all.
Okay, let's just look at some of these anomalies, because this is where it gets weird. In certain formations, the plant stems aren't broken. They are bent at the node, almost like they were gently steamed and softened. Researchers have found residual microwave radiation. There are countless reports of these strange balls of light hovering over the fields right before a circle appears. And get this, seeds from inside these formations have been shown to germinate way faster in lab tests.
And what makes this so compelling is that even the most pragmatic people, the farmers who work this land every single day, have seen things they just can't explain. This quote here is talking about a ghost circle, where the crop was still standing but was bent perfectly at the nodes, making a pattern about 15 centimeters lower than the rest of the field. It happened overnight, and he's sure no human could have done it.
And this is where that distinction becomes so important. On one side, you've got your man-made circles with the broken stems and the messy footprints. On the other, what researchers called the genuine phenomenon, with these elegantly bent stems, surgically clean lines, and measurable energy signatures. They are, at a fundamental level, different.
So all of this brings us to this kind of modern stalemate. Most serious researchers will agree that the vast majority, maybe 90%, of crop circles are pretty clearly man-made.
But that leaves this fascinating, stubborn 10% that just defies any rational explanation. And it's right there, in that little slice, that the real mystery lives.
So if humans aren't behind that mysterious 10%, then what is? Well, one really intriguing theory involves something called cymatics. It's the science of how sound vibrations can create geometric patterns. If you put salt on a metal plate and vibrate it with a specific sound frequency, the salt will arrange itself into these unbelievably complex, mandala-like shapes. And given that witnesses have reported bizarre multidimensional sounds, well, some people wonder if a similar principle could be at play in the fields.
You know, this leads to a whole other way of thinking about it. Maybe we've just been asking the wrong questions. We're so focused on who or what is making them that we might be missing the entire point. Maybe it's not a message that's meant to be logically decoded.
I just think this is a brilliant analogy. It's like we're having our hair stroked. It's a pure communication of presence. But our culture, we demand answers. We want a message. We have to know who sent it and what they want. What if the whole point is just the experience itself, that feeling of awe and wonder and mystery?
And this just frames the entire phenomenon in a totally new light. What if the purpose of crop circles isn't to give us any answers at all, but to make us question everything, to force us to confront the absolute limits of our own knowledge and challenge our assumptions about the world we think we live in?
And at the end of the day, that might just be the most profound takeaway of all. Whether it's art, a massive prank, or something far, far stranger, the phenomenon forces us to consider that there are things we just don't understand. And maybe its true purpose is to stretch our consciousness, to make us just a little more humble, and to help us accept that maybe, just maybe, we're not the only intelligence at play in the universe.